Hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on MisplacedStraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today has spent a career playing alongside legends such as Ian Hunter, Richard Lloyd, Alejandro Escovedo, and many more. But on February 21st, he's going to release a solo record called Dawn of a New Era. Please welcome James Mastro. Welcome, James.
Hey, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this record, Dawn of a New Era, it's out
Mhm.
February 21st, excuse me. And you work with a ton of great people on this record. Talk a little bit about some of the people that join you on the record.
Uh, well, it started with my good friend Tony Shanahan, who is been with Patti Smith for probably almost 30 years
Mm.
as her bass player and keyboard player. And we're good friends. I had a band called Health and Happiness Show, and he was in that. So it started with him. He had just started a studio, and he needed someone to go in there and do trial runs and see, how the studio was working. So I was the guinea pig, and we just started making the record from there. And it was me and him, and some great drummers coming in. Louis Appel, who played with Southside Johnny, Steve Goulding from Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello and Grant Parker, and Brian Griffin, who plays with Patty Black Crows, and
Mhm.
just a ton of other people. And through my working with Ian Hunter, I was able to convince him to come in and do some singing on it too.
Mhm. So you spend a lot of time playing with people like Ian Hunter.
Mhm.
Are you always writing with an eye toward putting out a solo album eventually, or do you sit and specifically write a record?
No, these were kind of, I'm doing that now, but
Mhm.
these were kind of tidbits that just had been, I've been so busy the past 20 years playing with other people that I never really had the focus to do a record, and COVID kind of gave me some time to sit down and say, wow, I got enough songs or almost enough songs for a record here. So that kind of was the final impetus to finish it. But I'm always writing, whether you finish it or not, it's another story. So.
Now, the first single from the record, Right Words, Wrong Song, it
Mhm.
talks about a pretty serious topic, how we get our news and dissemination of facts, but it does it in a really fun, tongue-in-cheek way, especially the video.
Mhm.
When you're writing, how much of your lyrics are influenced by what's going on in the world, versus your personal thoughts?
Right. Well, I find if I watch the news or read the paper continuously, I get very depressed.
We
so,
all do.
so I kind of keep a sideline glance at everything. But yeah, there's no way you can't be affected by what's going on, and whatever your political beliefs or religious beliefs, to me, it just boils down to what's right and what's wrong, and what's good for someone or what's bad for someone. It should be that simple. So when things seem bad, that's when I get upset. Um, so I can't say I'm really a political writer, but you have to be affected by the weather somehow. So.
And talk a little bit about the video for Right Words, Wrong
Mhm.
Songs. It's a fun video, but again, it deals with a pretty important topic. How'd you kind of come up with the idea for that?
Well, again, I think the better way to get, you can preach all you want, or you can just kind of go a roundabout way of getting your point across, and someone who saw the video is like, wow, this reminds me of total MTV early days. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. And that's kind of, I grew up and was part of that.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of rubbed off. And the idea of making videos is not appealing to me. So if we're going to do it, I was going to have fun with it. So.
you began back with the CBGB crowd, people
Mhm.
like Richard Lloyd and Patti Smith and John Cale when you were just a kid. What did you learn both about the business and about creating music from that crowd?
Um, Business wise, a lot. At 18, I thought I was going to be a millionaire because I was
Mhm.
on a major label with Richard Lloyd. And I soon learned that's not the case. Uh, uh, but we were being paid very well for what we did back then. And as a kid, to still live in for half that time, still living at home. I was still in high school, but coming home with a wad of cash, it was like, wow, I could make a living doing this, and this is what I want to do. So the fact that I was getting paid for doing something that I love was kind of a plus. Um, as far as musically, what I learned from each person was that what you
Yeah,
asked? Or,
yeah.
um, I mean, from anyone I work with, for any level, there's always something to learn. With Richard Lloyd, basically, that's where I learned to play guitar. Uh, the importance of, I mean, he's a phenomenal guitar player, as we know, and phenomenal lead guitar player, but also an amazing rhythm player. And my role in that was rhythm, and everyone wants to play lead guitar, me included. And I don't feel I'm that good at it, but rhythm guitar is an art. So from Richard, guitar lessons, basically, every night we went on stage, it was a lesson. Uh, Playing with Patti Smith, she is the lead, her voice is the lead guitar in that band. So you just follow, and there's so much passion there. And every night's going to be, a, a roller coaster ride. So you just have to be ready, and you're watching, and it's interaction with the other musicians. Uh, you have to pay attention. And same with Kale. John is brilliant, and he would change things every night, deconstruct his own songs. Nothing was sacred. So you kind of learn, like, yeah, you can go out and do the songs the same way every night, or you can push yourself. And all those artists really push themselves. So that was a great learning point for me.
And over all of these years, again, you've made your career as a sideman. You've also been a frontman doing your own stuff in your own bands. Do you approach the instrument and the songs differently as a frontman as opposed to a sideman?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do, because I hate singing, but I guess if I'm put myself off as a frontman, then I got to really focus on that. So I'm happy to share the role of, guitar duties with someone else. And I have a great guitarist on playing with me for our upcoming shows, Chris Robertson, who played with Psychedelic Furs, and he's in a band called Elk City, and just brilliant. And it's kind of nice to be able to, again, go back to my rhythm playing, which I like to do, and that's how I wrote the songs. Playing rhythm guitar. So it's kind of, it makes sense for me to change the way I play. So.
When I listen to the record, to Dawn of a New Era, like I said, I hear the influences from all those people we just mentioned. I mean, there are times where your vocal phrasing reminds me a little bit of Ian Hunter or Patti Smith.
Right.
And I think you can hear flourishes of Richard Lloyd's playing on the record. When you write, do those influences, are they just part of you now? Do you ever go back and say, like, yeah, that reminds me of something I did with Richard or did with Ian or anything like that?
Um, I, I don't know if I'm consciously thinking of any of
Mhm.
them. It's kind of like, you eat enough food and it's in your system and
Yeah.
it's there. And again, just taking the good qualities from every one of those artists. It's, being with Ian for over 20 years, it can't help but rub off. He's such a great songwriter, and lyrically, uh, very different from Patty or John. Ian is much more structured, in his writing and discipline. So there's that good balance for me of like, trying to make it really perfect, but then also having that freedom of a poet like Patty or something. I don't consciously think of it. They just kind of, you plant the seed and see what comes up.
And you say you've been with Ian for well over 20 years now. How did you guys first hook up?
I totally bamboozled my way into Mott the Hoople is the reason I started playing guitar. I love that band as a kid. And Ian was finally doing his show in the year 2000 in New York. And my friend was Andy York, who's produced all Ian's records since, was the guitar player. So when I found this out, I called him up right away and I was like, hey, look, I know, you may not need it, but I'd love to be a part of the band, play guitar. He's like, great, let me call Ian. Called Ian. Andy calls me back the next day. Ian doesn't really want to have another guitar player. It's like, thought about it for a day, called him back. I was like, I know you're doing I Wish I Was Your Mother, the Hoople song that has mandolin. I was like, I'll play mandolin. And he was like, great idea. Let me call Ian. So he calls me back. He's like, yeah, Ian said, come by. The only issue was I didn't play mandolin. I didn't own a mandolin. So I went and borrowed one from a friend, stayed up all night, learned the song, went to the rehearsal the next day, and, passed the test. And then it just kind of went on from there. So.
And he's one of the legendary figures in music. But I don't think he's ever gotten his due, at least here in America. You know the catalog better than most. What Ian Hunter record or tracks would you recommend for the listener that may only know the Mott hits?
Well, every one of his any current record, he started recording in 2000 are phenomenal. The Rant record is great. Maybe one of my personal favorites is Shrunken Heads, but also his first solo album right after Mott, which is just called Ian Hunter, is great. And some of those songs were supposed to be Mott songs. So you can hear the transition from, Mott and then him becoming more introspective, but even his newest record, Defiance, is phenomenal. The songwriting is just, he's consistent. So,
yep. For me, I think my personal favorite was always the record he did with Mick Ronson, YU Iorta.
Yeah,
American
great
music. I love that record.
So how do you pick?
Yeah. So, and you recently worked with Ian on a cover of Jesse Malin's "Dead On" for a benefit record that'll be coming out. And I've actually talked about that record with a couple of people I've interviewed over the past few months that will help Jesse with his medical bills. Ian also guests on "Right Words, Wrong Song." At 84 years old, I mean, how is he still able to put together the performances he's doing on these tracks?
Science should be studying him. He really is phenomenal. He's sharp, he's fit. He puts us to shame. Like doing a 2-hour show, I'd come off stage and be like a little knackered, and he'd be like, "Okay, now what? Let's go out." I'd be like, "Jesus," he's pretty inspiring. So.
So now, getting back to Dawn of a New Era, do you have any shows planned? Will you be doing some touring for it?
I do. We're doing a big show in New York at the Bowery Electric the night of the day of the release, February 21st. Then I'm playing Asbury Park, February 24th at the Clinch Gallery. But then I'm also going on tour after that with Alejandro Escovedo in April. Great. So I'll be opening those shows and then in Alejandro's band afterwards. So double duty, two different hats. So
That's I mean, Alejandro, he's one of my favorite live performers ever.
yeah,
There's nothing like seeing one of his shows. So I
yeah.
definitely look forward to that tour. Hopefully you guys will make your way up to this area.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've been spending some time here with James Mastro. The record is called Dawn of a New Era. It is out everywhere on February 21st. James, thanks so much for taking the time to do this, and best of luck with the record.
Thank you, Jared. All the best.